Okay, this video is about the MRO Nano Talon EVO, the problems I've had with it, the help I've gotten with it, and what's actually wrong with it, which I truly don't know. There is a lot of strangeness with it. Let me show you what I've done. I put out a call and a bunch of Ardu people, well, not a bunch, a couple, offered help. And I sent my bin file off to one. I'm not going to use these people's names. I don't want to enhance my credibility on their shoulders, and I don't want to pull them down. Evidently, people don't like me. They think I'm stupid because I had problems with a ground station and MRO loading slowly that I didn't even build. I'm not sure what's going on. They evidently don't follow my videos. Evidently, I'm not at all good at videos. I may quit doing them. But anyway, the gentleman I sent my bin file off replied to me. A wonderful person, very knowledgeable, way ahead of me, way ahead of most. He looked at my telemetry from the Sunday flight, basically verified everything I said. Again, I'm not going to use their name. If they want to reveal themselves, they can. I'm getting really tired of this. There's some really rude users out there in YouTube. Your airspeed use is 0. Yeah, well, yeah, we all know that. That was a airspeed sensor calibration flight, and I may still be confused. I don't profess to know everything, but I don't use the airspeed sensor, and it was still is my impression that you shouldn't use the airspeed sensor until it's calibrated. I could be wrong. I may find out later I'm wrong. You can go ahead and turn it on use from before you even maiden it for the first time. And if on your first maiden you're going to do the airspeed calibration, you're in Fat City. I don't know. I thought seeing it might not be well calibrated, to use it might not be smart. So I had not yet come to the point of changing this parameter. There's another one associated with this, but we'll get into that. I don't think this person is telling me I screwed that up. It was never brought up. Is this correct? They were just politely going through and trying to help me with stuff. And I appreciate them immensely because they added to this statement, thus the throttle is controlled by trim airspeed centimeters. I had no idea. I am just setting up my first ArduPlanes. I worked for a year on ArduRovers. Got them doing everything I wanted them to do. Everything anybody else showed on the internet they could do, I could do too. I took that same thing and worked about 2 years on ArduCopter to duplicate that in ArduCopter. I figured because I was starting out, if I used a rock crawler, ground rover that only went at 3 miles an hour, I could catch it if it did anything funky on a mission or whatever. After that all worked perfectly, to duplicate that in a quad should be, if it was perfect, which it never is, should be just the quad doing the same thing the rovers did in the air instead of on the ground, which I did. After that, I kind of hung out for about 3 years just playing with the quads and stuff, having great fun. Only during COVID did I come and start my third Ardu project, ArduPlane. I've worked about 2 years getting my ArduPlanes built and ready to go, and they are ready to go. They're actually perfectly ready to go. You're going to find out today. I am at the end. I'm ready to go on to Ardu Sub, Ardu Boat, Ardu Tracker. Why would I throw that 5 years away right now to switch to a different flight system? Is that logical? So getting more information here. So if we look at trim airspeed centimeter, try to scrape that out of there. And we'll go out here. I've got two flight controllers connected. This one is the MRO platform. We'll go into its parameter list. Look at that specified parameter. Trim airspeed centimeters, 1500 centimeters per second. Target airspeed in centimeters and automatic throttle modes. Value is an indicated calibrated / parent airspeed. Well, it was parent for my flight because I wasn't using the airspeed yet because I was calibrating it. Now that's on the MRO. Let's disconnect from this one real quick and look. We'll come back to this on another flight controller, but let's look at my 750, my first mini Talon that I built. What you're going to find here is MRO has that thing configured just weird. So this is my platform. I am at 1200, and this is a flight controller that has just had ArduPlane, I think 4.3.0 flashed to it. It's all defaults. And we look at that parameter again in defaults. 1200 is the default. 1200 centimeters per second. So 1200 centimeters per second is 26.8 miles per hour. Yikes. In my humble opinion, that's below stall speed on some platforms. I don't know yet. I haven't got to play with that yet. But I do see that 1500 is 33.55404 miles an hour, just exactly as I was told here. Well, okay, so they didn't extend out the digits, but it's perfect. Yeah. Cruise, let's see. Thus, the throttle is controlled by trim airspeed centimeters per second. 1500 is set to maintain 33.55 miles per hour cruise speed, and this is using artificial airspeed. Yes, because I don't use airspeed turned on yet. And like I say, the default is 1200. My platforms are set to 1200. This was about exactly the speed. It was just a little bit above this, like 36 was being called out when the ground station was working Sunday, and when it was calling out the speed every 30 seconds, for the 30 seconds it was calling it out, was around this. It was a little higher because of that fluctuation in cruise speed caused by the fact that the airspeed sensor is not yet in use. It will not fly as efficiently as when real airspeed sensor is used. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That was my thinking too. That would explain your higher than anticipated current use during the loiters. Well, yeah, that was my thinking too. No problem there. I don't like the fact that the default for this is 1200. All my platforms that I programmed, that I set the parameters up in, are the default because I haven't messed with these yet. After I got the airspeed sensor calibrated and an auto tune done, then I was going to search out these extra parameters and do the fine tuning. They're not required. They're just there so you can tune it further. Basically, with default parameters, when you get an airspeed calibration and an auto tune, you're finished. Airspeed, fly-by-wire minimum. That in the Nano Talon looks like it's set to 10. Let's go look at that. This is defaults. What the hey? Let's just look at these defaults first. That won't hurt a thing. Actually, the default is 9 meters per second. Minimum airspeed demanded in automatic throttle modes should be set to 20% higher than level flight stall speed. Okay, if MRO calibrated the level flight stall speed, which is an advanced function you don't have to do, I will be doing it because it's very important for automatic takeoffs and even more important for automatic landings that you know the exact stall speed, and Ardu tells you how to calculate it. Then you can add 20% to it and change this value. This is the default. If you've got text selected, it will think you're just trying to search within that selected text. There we go. So this is my platform. This is the default. We are the same. But look at what MRO is. Ten. Now this is exactly what the gentleman spoke about. That MRO has it set to 10. He thought that was kind of low. He would set it to 13. The default's 9. But I think he has more experience with this and knows that 13 might be the new default that ArduPlane should accept and put in there. Perhaps. This isn't required. We're into the super advanced tuning now. This isn't required for an Ardu airplane. You can completely forget this. If you got an airspeed sensor, you probably shouldn't forget the airspeed calibration and the airspeed used. Probably after you have an airspeed on, it would be fine to mess with this. But still, that's part of advanced tuning. You won't crash. It will fly just as good as other platforms, other operating systems, other flight control systems with just the airspeed calibration and an auto tune. Frequently, the auto tune isn't needed. So I'm going to be kind of looking at setting it to what he suggests. But in all my platforms, it's on 9, somewhat lower. Ardu, MRO set it to 10 in their platform. We can't figure out why Ardu set some of this stuff. I mean, MRO set some of this stuff, but they did. This one, this has to do with long fail-safe, which I do generally set. The default for that, of course, is, well, let's just look at the way MRO, just because it's here. MRO, whoops. MRO has it set to 0. Perhaps that's the default. We'll see in a second here. I personally think that return to launch isn't a bad thing to set everything for. And I generally set this to return to launch. Yeah, I set this to return to launch on mine, because what happens is when you turn off your radio, you're going to hit this failsafe first, and you're going to start circling. When the timeout on this one, because there is a timer on this one, and this one is longer, if it continues circling and the fault is not corrected and it reaches the long timeout, then it will do this action. This is actually what happens if your radio fails. First it goes short failsafe, then it goes long. In this case, if I turned off my radio without that set to a 1, in this case, I turned off my radio, it would start circling, and then when it hit this one, it would just continue to circle. If it was a mile away, it would circle there until the battery died. Probably not optimal, so I certainly do agree with him on that one. I don't disagree with him on anything. I'm accepting his help, and I like it. It does agree with my way of thinking. It doesn't have to. Oops. Somehow I got a period on that. And see, this is the default. So I think he would agree with me. I would set the defaults to 0 for this one and 1 for this one. Thought that's the way I had them set, but I don't think I always do. Nope. This is 750, my first mini Talon. I could look at the other ones. I'm sure this is set to a 1 in some of the other ones because this is just wrong, in my humble opinion. I think he agrees with me on this. I understood this one immediately without having to go to the perimeters. I've been working with that one for a long time. Throttle minimum set to 35. We'll go into mine real quick. Zero for me. That's what he suggests. That's, oops, there we go. Throttle in. Right here, 0 for defaults. But for some reason, unbeknownst to either this gentleman or I, MRO has set this platform to 35. I have no idea why. I don't think the gentleman helping me knows why. MRO knows why. I'd say this is a very high level tuning value. Minimum throttle percentage used in all modes except manual, provided through. This looks like pass-through stabilization, but I don't know it. Throttle pass-through stabilization or something. Anyway, this value is not set. Negative values allow reverse thrust if hardware supports it. Whoa. Well, at least it's not a negative number, but neither one of us understand why MRO set that. And this is probably, seeing it's up, I don't know, this could be adding to my throttle there. We'll go back real quick because I'm at 0. The default is 0. MRO set it to 35 for some reason. Neither one of us are sure of that one. I'm not going to change it from 0, so I'm going to follow his advice here. There's not an inkling iota of advice on this text right here that I'm not going to follow. So if this is non-zero, then you would have this set to a 1. Throttle pass stabilization. I don't know. Set to 0 if you change throttle min to 0. Well, I'm not going to change it to 0. The default is 0. Therefore, my defaults are 0. So it doesn't need to be a 1. Let's see what that is in these others. In mine, it's 0. In this is MRO. They've got it set to a 1 because it's non-zero. I'm not going to do much with their stuff. And the defaults are 0. I can probably tell you right now, because if the throttle min is 0, this should be 0. Bingo, 0. Personally, I would disable compass. I was going to do a call out to people to try to smoke this compass thing over. Two very respected people that are very high in the Ardu seem to be experimenting with compasses like I wanted to right now. I was going to put a call out. I was going to reference their 2 videos about their opinions on compass, put my opinion with it, ask for everybody else's opinion, and smoke it over. There's so much confusion on this subject, it isn't even funny. Number one, they say it crashes things. Some people say it does in all flight firmware except ArduPlane. Some say it doesn't. I have yet to find anybody that can show me a video of a compass crashing an airplane and a telemetry log to go with it to prove it. Because there's a lot of speculation out there, I wanted to start a discussion and try to get this nailed down. Find somebody who's actually had the problem. Tell us why the compass crashed your airplane, etc., etc., etc. But I'm not going to pull those people's names into public with mine and pull them down. Evidently, people don't think I know what I'm doing, so I'm not going to associate my name with theirs. So they think they don't know what they're doing because I don't. So probably don't know if I'm going to do that discussion. It depends on if people ag me into it or not. So because of a little discussion I had with one of those people yesterday, I changed my mind on this last night about midnight. And because of this user sending me this statement right here, I'm going to do exactly what he suggests. It doesn't hurt a thing to disable a compass on an airplane. Some say it helps keep it from crashing, but I've never seen that proof. But it doesn't hurt to disable it. It will work perfectly because under speed, a GPS can calculate direction easily. If the GPS couldn't, you would have to have a compass to be able to calculate direction. In the days before GPSs, you wouldn't be able to disable the compass. You'd either have to make it work or keep crashing. Because that's the way it is. I still don't see why a compass would crash an airplane. I can see if the code's not right, but I can immediately see them correcting the code. But because this is so up in the air and people are so opinionated on it, and if you don't do it their way, they're just going to cut you as much as they can. I'm going to do my own thing, stick with these people I understand, and no ArduPlane. I'm actually going to disable it for a while, and then I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to do exactly what he says. Then you can press your luck later. I'm going to do exactly the gentleman I was communicating with last night. He's kind of where I am. He's not opposed to playing with it. He doesn't know exactly how it would help or how it would hurt. He's inquisitive like me. Neither one of us need to be beat upon for that inquisitive nature. Some other things he went over with me. Stock prop and motor. Technically, it's not a stock prop. It is the stock motor. But that first auto takeoff where I set the throttle to 70% because somebody suggested it to me, and it didn't have enough power to get up and landed in the sod and burn up the motor before I could, and broke the prop, burn up the motor before I could disarm it or stop it from trying to spin. I did have to replace the motor. I did replace it with an exact replacement, but I did not replace the prop with a ZOHD prop. I used one of the exact same pitch and length from the local hobby store. I don't think we think that's a lot of problem, but I think he did notice that there's a symbol on the front of my prop, because that is a aftermarket prop. That isn't a ZOHD symbol. Very intelligent man, very observant. I'm assuming your battery amp per volt and battery amp multiplier are off. I really do not know. MRO did all of that. I did turn around and do a voltage current calibration and found it not to be off much. We still know there's a vast difference in this MRO from anything it looks like he's seen, anything I've ever seen in ArduPlane. I'm just now setting my own stuff up, but it's different from the way I would set it up. But I didn't build that airplane. I didn't change all the parameters. I'm having to work with other people's work, and then people put me down as if I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So that's all in MROs on this one. On my own platforms, I looked up the battery amp per volt on a Matex 743 flight controller and the battery volt multiplier on their current sensor and set it as they said. Now, that might not stay that way, because during the calibration you may change it ever so slightly because of differences in the electronics from module to module. They won't be large, they probably won't matter, but if you want to really be spot on, do your voltage, amperage, calibration, and walk away happy. The actual bin file for his flight right here didn't get attached. That's no big deal. The information here, though, is still useful and valuable. I imagine the current draw was fairly constant, more level than mine, but mine's explained by the fact that it's not using the airspeed sensor yet, so it's speeding up, calculating an apparent airspeed that's probably wrong, slowing down, or the opposite is what's going on with that platform. Took about 11 minutes to drain 1,000 milliamp hours. Well, I had 13, so it's going to take me about 12 to 13 minutes. That 1,300 milliamp hour battery is not going to last long. I used it because it was the lightest weight battery recommended for the maiden and the tuning. No, it's not going to fly long. It's not going to work well. I've got two coming today that are at the top of the recommendation. And then once my current is known and steady, then I will look at the lithium ion battery, because you can mess the daylights out of them if you draw too much current out of them quickly. And that takeoff, I need to calm down or it's going to hurt my lithium ion battery. In my opinion, I'm learning all this. So it was windy for him. Yeah, so we've got just a hair difference on this. We're in line, just a hair difference. He would just do all this, get it ready, and not push it on the little small battery, and then after it's all set and ready to go, he'd just switch over to the other one and go for it. Because actually, I'm done on this platform, which I'll show you in a second. I'm going to stick a little extra thing in there and say that I'm going to go from a 1300 milliamp hour battery to a 2200 milliamp hour battery, and then I'm going to go to lithium ion. That's the only difference in his thinking and my thinking on this. I don't see any conflict there. Well, and he basically said, yeah, everything you saw in the telemetry logs, you interpreted correctly. He'll review the telemetry. .bin file is what you send when you want people to look at your telemetry logs. All your parameters are in that .bin file too. Everything's in that .bin file. You don't have to worry about sending the parameter list along and anything else like that. Just exchange bin files with people. In more detail, what I see exactly, but he sees exactly what I showed in my video talking about it. Yeah, the battery was drained. A problem with sharing a hardware device between two programs cropped up for the very first time ever in the history I've been doing this. On one flight, and caused telemetry not to be being collected for a while, and the slowness of the MRO flight controller to load 4.3.0 caused some extra problems. Is why that flight went on so long that it drained the battery so badly. Had that ground station never crashed due to the way I was trying to use it, somebody was telling me to get in the heads up the video on that and fly from that. I was trying to sort of follow what they said. I'm not following what people tell me much anymore. I'm doing my own thing. So, had those two unplanned events not happened, I never would have flown that battery so long. It never would have drained down, but when it did, and I finally saw it, I tried to get it on the ground. I was out of time by then. 10, 20 seconds more, I would have been fine. You people wouldn't be giving me down the road over that flight now. Measure how many milliamp hours were put back in. To tell you the truth, honestly, I just put that battery. That battery was drained down to 3 volts at one point sitting there. So when I got it back here, my charger, of course, wouldn't charge it. So I had to lie to my charger and tell it was a nickel metal hydride battery and charge it just briefly for like 10 seconds that way to bring the voltage level up enough where the battery charger for LiPo charge wouldn't reject the battery. So I don't know how much milliamp hours I could have put back in while I was telling it was nickel metal hydride. I didn't pay any attention, therefore, to how many milliamp hours it put back into it when it charged it as a LiPo. Luckily for me, even that sucker getting down to, oh God, it must have been down to less than 1 volt per cell. It's a wonder it didn't burst into flame. 3 volts. 4C. It didn't puff. It took it. It was the first time it had ever taken anything like that. I doubt it'll repeatedly take that, but I was kind of impressed with the little thing. But because of that, I didn't pay any attention to the milliamp hours returned because I'd already screwed that up before I even started it charging, so I wasn't able to do that one. And then he suggests his current sensors he uses because they seem to be really, really accurate. You know, if your current sensor isn't accurate, you can calibrate it all you want. It's just not going to work good for you. So, the crux of all this is I have finished my ArduPlane experience as far as tuning, all of that good stuff. I was right on track. A few little problems along the way causing a recalibration of airspeed sensor and such. caused a few little hiccups. I kept my cool and kept digging away at the problems. Other people just went, God, I don't understand. So here's what you do at this point after you've done a good airspeed calc. You come right in here and you say airspeed auto calc. I've done that. I'm through with that. I have to do that 0 more times. Right perimeters. And you come down here to airspeed use and you say, wow, now that it's calibrated and usable, I want to use it one time. I'm just being silly with those statements. Basically forever. Right perimeters. I was going to make a bold statement there. And I save these now to file. I'm going to save it as a 423 perimeter dot temp because I want to be a little more sure before I add just the change of those 2 perimeters to my master list for this one. Now here's a problem here. I was going to say now I am completely finished with configuring an ArduPlane. Nothing else to do, people. There's no other problems. Nothing else to do. There's some extra advanced tuning that you can do. The TECS is packed with things to do to control the platform. It's not required. It's extra advanced, wonderful stuff. Because TECS stands for Total Energy Control System. Now, the reason I'm not going to make that statement that this is completely ready is because, just as the gentleman I just showed you looked through this perimeter file, this one is not set up or configured by me. Neither of us understand why MRO set some of these perimeters the way they did. There's no telling how many other perimeters in here are set differently from what he or I would set it to, what the defaults are. So I'm not going to worry much about this MRO Nano Talon anymore. It's a great test platform because I'm getting kind of tired of the little damn thing. But on the platforms I am configuring, tuning, and testing, the 1750 has had its airspeed calibration and has its auto tune. So I can come over here on 750, change this 1 to a 0 to turn off automatic airspeed calibration and turn on airspeed use. And 750, in my opinion, is completely finished, ready to fly for the rest of its life with no other changes unless somebody wants to tune it more precisely. My other platforms still need basically only the airspeed calibration and an auto tune, and they are finished completely. I have just completed my ArduPlane portion of my project I started about 10 years ago. I took 3 years off and I took about 5 years off, not really off, just playing with quads. And then now I have done 2 more years on ArduPlane. Then I'm going to go on to ArduSub, ArduBoat, ArduTracker, ArduRocket if they come out with it. So I think that is the end of how I needed to explain last Sunday's garbage. I fully expect, I'm not going to try to share that USB camera between Mission Planner and Multicam Capture ever again. Number one, it doesn't work. It crashes Mission Planner. Why would you ever do that again? And why are people confused over what happened there? I know the problem with the MRO loading slow on a Mission Planner 430 or above. That may or may not be fixed in the future by them. I don't care. I know it is a problem on the MRO Nano Talon. I'll leave it on 423, and it won't be a problem. That is forever put to bed. I fully expect all my future flights that ground station will do the same thing it did for the past 10 years. Sit there, record telemetry, call out my flight parameters verbally every 30 seconds. That is all. I will only report that this is the 10th flight, ground station didn't crash again, and then I'll stop doing it, so I won't be ad nauseum telling you how many times that ground station sat there and worked perfectly. You've seen it fail one time. You will not see it fail again. I bet you dollars to donuts. But I won't keep telling you on the 100th flight. Look, 100th flight, ground station didn't crash again. So, I've got lots of parts coming in today. Those 2 batteries for this. I've got to glue the video transmitter back on the Nano Talon. I'll probably use it for experimenting a lot, knowing that because there's probably all sorts of parameters in the Nano Talon setup that some of us don't understand, that if it crashes, fine, that platform somebody else configured is gone and out of my hair. All the ones that I configured and all of the people that help me and stuff completely understand like I do is what I've got left. I don't know. Got lots of parts coming today, especially the 2 batteries for this for longer flights. The next time I fly the Nano Talon, this is my prediction. Ground station's going to work perfectly. I will launch it in fly-by-wire A mode instead of automatic takeoff, because automatic takeoff just runs out too far for me. I just don't care for it. You know, once I see the plane is even, well, actually for me, because of flying real airplanes, when I launch in fly-by-wire A mode, I throw it out there, and the first thing I do is try to establish level flight. I don't try to get it going up immediately. I just don't want it going down. So if I throw it and it starts down just a little, I'm not going to do much for a second and see if it doesn't just start maintaining altitude or going up a little. And if it does, I'm going to level it out to increase airspeed before I climb. Exactly the way you should in a real airplane. So if I throw it and it starts going up at a high angle, even though I probably know from flying it 10 or 20 times that it can handle that, I'm probably still going to drop the nose till the airspeed gets up good, and then I'll bring it around. That'll be all in fly-by-wire A. It won't be at 100% throttle. The current won't be pinging out, topping out. It won't be damaging the lithium-ion battery when I go for it. It won't be draining the battery as fast. And I'll just pull it around and fly-by-wire A, fly-by-wire B, cruise, all that good stuff at much lower currents than I have. The plane will fly much better, and I will have fun. And if you like to watch, go ahead. I would love to have you. But please be a little more kind than you've been the last week to me, people. Okay, sorry about the rant. Thank you so very much. I will let you know as future events occur.